So hello everyone, this is another session of Yoga Readers where we meet together online to discuss and also reread chapters from Light on Life by B.K.S. Iyengar. I am very happy to have thought about this community, and I'm very happy for you joining us today since you are the community. And I'm very happy we're working on this together. And I also have the sense that we are together when we are apart. So for me, reading chapter 5 or rereading chapter 5 alone in my house in Jerusalem, Israel, I feel as part of a group of other people around the world who are reading, perhaps not at the same moment, but perhaps in the same week or in the same weeks, reading the same material as me. Do they have the same thoughts as I have? Do they struggle wherever I struggle? And these thoughts kind of appear again and again while I'm reading the chapter. And I'm very happy that we can meet in an online session and share our thoughts on this wonderful book that we are reading. So very briefly, I'll tell you about chapter 5. I already sent you quite a long summary of the chapter. It's a very rich chapter. And So I already sent you a summary of this chapter, and I just want to very briefly again mention what the chapter talks about, since we won't have time to read through the whole thing through about 50 pages. We'll just have to pick a few paragraphs like we usually do in these sessions. So this chapter is entitled Wisdom, the Intellectual Body. And already here, tying between wisdom and intellect is already quite a very heavy hint that B.K.S. Iyengar gives us to whatever lies ahead. So in this chapter, he delves into the profound connection between yoga practice and cultivating inner wisdom. It's not the other kind of knowledge that we acquire from others, from the outside, but an inner sense of knowing that we cultivate through our practice. Our individual intelligence is limited, but it connects to a vaster cosmic intelligence that governs the universe. And yoga postures, or asanas, as well as pranayama, are a tool or a pathway through which we can deepen our personal or individual intelligence. So through the body's sensations and mindful movements, we can access a wisdom that transcends our rational thinking. Iyengar emphasizes the importance of awareness in yoga practice. This isn't just about being physically present in the pose, which is of course also very important, but it's about cultivating a clear and honest perception of ourselves, both physically and mentally. This awareness allows us to integrate the mind and the body. When the mind becomes overly critical or judgmental, the body tenses up. But with awareness, we can learn to quiet the mind and allow the body to move freely and gracefully. And the integration fosters a state of wholeness and integrity within ourselves. So in this chapter, Iyengar deals with the fourth kosha, which is Vijnana Maya kosha. Vijnana is one word which has two parts in it. V and jnana. Jnana would be knowledge, or here wisdom, and the prefix V would mean to discriminate. So a knowledge or wisdom that discriminates between two things. And this comes again and again in the chapter. We can use something in a good way or in a bad way, and we need to discriminate between the two usages of a certain mind fluctuation. So he talks about the intellectual and on our ability to act with logic, comparison, and discerning knowledge. This layer is different from the kosha that we discussed in previous chapter, which was the manomaya kosha, which deals more with emotions, while the Vijnanamaya kosha focuses more on the mental tools that can lead us to correct and deeper understanding in our yoga practice. He explains how intelligent or discerning knowledge can serve us during asana practice in the context of alignment and improving posture performance. He emphasizes the importance of distinguishing between true knowledge and illusionary knowledge. So at the beginning of the chapter, Iyengar deals with wisdom, with jnana. This term is difficult. Okay. And wisdom or vijnana is immediate knowledge or realization that goes beyond intellectual knowledge and is related to intuition or direct wisdom, which can be achieved through spiritual practices such as yoga. Jnana is knowing that we are not what it perceived by the senses, while vijnana is the realization of this fact. So it's a bit, we won't go deeply into these philosophical terms, but it's important to understand the difference between the intellectual knowledge, the knowledge, the jnana, and the vijnana, which is something beyond rationale, something that kind of springs from within, and we have to cultivate it in order for it to spring. So he continues then to explain about intelligence, about the body, and he mentions Sutra 1.3 of the Patanjala Yoga Sutra, Tada drashtu swarupe vasthanam, which then he explains that intelligence through the metaphor of a lens. When the lens is dirty, one cannot see correctly. And when looking through the lens in the wrong direction, outward to the world of phenomenon, one cannot see the inner self. So this metaphor is related to vision. And in the sutra says, then, once the yogi achieved the stillness of the mind or the fluctuations of the mind, then he can see the primal form of the seer or himself or herself. So that's the moment of realization in that sutra. And yeah, so then we can see the swarupe, then we can see the true form of who we are. And so I would like us to begin, if you don't have any questions, with reading. We have quite a lot of reading today because this chapter is just priceless with the metaphors and examples and how he ties these philosophical terms to our daily practice. It's just fantastic. So I would like us to read from page 152. Let me upload the reading. And like we did in previous meetings, if you are willing to read, just open your mic and start. And if no one reads, then I'll have to do it.
I'll read.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I'll go. Okay. Transforming the mind. Consciousness, chitta, has three functions. The first is cognition, which is perceiving, knowing, and recognizing. The second is volition or will, which is the impulse to initiate action. The third is motion, which expresses the fire nature of mind, ever transforming itself and leaping up in different places and guises. These all serve for us to gain knowledge and appreciate the truth concerning humankind's position in the universe. Let us look at the fiery nature of mind. Fire flickers and dances, so does mind. In fact, consciousness modifies itself so rapidly that before we can recognize one fluctuation and examine it, it gets muddled with another. These muddled changes are a natural process. They show the vivacity of consciousness. All our activities depend upon these mental fluctuations. I have said that mind dances. It would also be true to say that mind leads us on a merry dance. If you want to get the best out of a fiery horse, you have to understand, tame, and control it. The same is true for a fiery mind, or it will run away with you, because mind is always drawn outward by the senses into the attractions of the material world. It cannot help but land us into a lot of tricky situations, ones we had not bargained for, or that look good at first, but turn sour on us. The way Patanjali expressed this is to say that the fluctuations of consciousness can be either painful or non-painful, either visible or invisible. He meant that some things look unpleasing, distressing, anguishing, and they are. Studying for an exam can be very hard. The benefits of passing the exam remain hidden, invisible until later. Conversely, the joys of the table are extremely pleasant, and the pains and problems that result from overindulgence may remain invisible for a long time. If eventually an illness or debility results, then that is a visible pain. But if we use all our resources, courage, will, and faith to overcome the sickness, a non-painful state emerges again. This is a way of warning us that there are always two sides to every coin, and that we should be guarded and thoughtful before we rush into things. There is always a price to pay or a reward to be earned. But the phrase, "if it feels good, do it," is not a maxim to be trusted in the long run. All philosophies recognize that a pleasure seeker will end up as a pain finder. The ancient Greeks said that moderation was the greatest virtue. Yoga says that it is through practice and detachment that we learn to avoid ricocheting from one extreme of pleasure and pain to the other. The double aspect of that fluctuating mind applies to what are called the 5 modifications of consciousness, in Sanskrit called chitta vrittis. These are correct knowledge, pramana, wrong knowledge or misconception, viparaya, imagination or fantasy, vikalpa, sleep, nidra, and memory, smriti. These are natural psychological states that occur in everyone. They are dependent on the brain and nervous system and disappear at death. One might be forgiven for wondering what the point is of studying them. Sleep is sleep, imagination is imagination, and as regards the first two, well, sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong. Yet from the yogic standpoint, there is a huge value in understanding them. Their misuse when they are defective can lead to endless trouble. They affect both the quality of our life and the actions we perform in it. The consequences of our actions endure. The implications are karmic. As you know, so shall you reap. This is a universal understanding. Yoga does not limit consequences to this life only. How does someone who is wrong about everything live in fantasies, sleeps badly, and misuses memory, conduct himself? Hitler truly believed that the Jewish people were subhuman and acted accordingly. This was wrong knowledge or misperception, total delusion. The consequence in his lifetime was his death and his country's destruction, along with much of the world.
We'll stop here.
Okay.
I tried to cut out the Hitler part.
Yeah, I get it.
Failed here. No, he has many metaphors and he jumps between different aspects of knowledge to try to connect the reader. So this point is we have to connect it to what we started with, that there is the mind. We discussed the mind, the manomaya kosha before, and we read about the vrittis, and we talked about the lake, and how we need to still them, and what thought waves we should cultivate, and which emotions should we cultivate. And we discussed all this. So why this repetition? Here he says, this is how our mind works, and now we have to understand how to use it in order to advance in our yogic path. So memory, we discussed memory before. We will read it a bit again, because he talks about it from a different angle. But memory can be a bad thing, right? It can lead us to certain tendencies or automatic responses to things, and then we need to pause and kind of think it through. But memory is a very good tool as well, because we learn from it. So we just need to learn how to use it. And this part, I mean, he was a true genius for telling us how come dreaming or vikalpa, how could that be used in a good way? It's not that we want to stop delusion or dream. We just need to know how to use it wisely. How do we use memory in a good way? And then what is the purpose of nidra, of sleep? How can we learn something yogic about sleep? And this is the bit we will read now about how he explains this. This is the moving from knowing how we think to understanding how we can utilize these wave thoughts in our yogic path. So we continue. I marked it from, it is definitely worth looking. Elizabeth or Karen?
Sorry, I lost my my unmute button. I found it again. Sorry. It is definitely worth looking at these 5 forms of consciousness in both their beneficial and deficient aspects. Their study can help us to follow a certain way of life and adopt a right way of thinking. They show us a direction and enable us to channel the thinking process. Our aim is not to arrest or restrain them, but gradually to transform them. They are not separate, but intertwined like threads in a cloth. One affects the others. The dullness of poor quality or tamasic sleep degrades the clarity of the 4 other modifications. Sharp analysis for right knowledge becomes impossible. When you are tired, it is not easy to remember things. We also depend on memory to recall other states, all other states. It links and underpins them. Discrimination is the knife edge of intellect, separating true from false, reality from unreality, using memory in such a way that past consequences are factored into our choices and decisions. If we can see consequences, we are not caught in the trap of apparent pain versus apparent pleasure. Discrimination is about making meaningful comparisons, such as, how does my practice compare with that of yesterday? Or, how does the stretch on my left leg compare with that on my right? You may well find the right leg is asleep. Initially, this is a process of trial and error. Later, we can learn to avoid error. In headstand pose, for example, something that usually goes wrong is that the upper arm shortens. Memory warns us to be careful before that happens. In this way, we break down bad habits. This is a useful discrimination that awakens awareness. Awareness, working with discrimination and memory, encourages a creative mind, not a mechanical mind. The mechanical mind questions only external phenomena, treating the world like a giant machine and resulting in objective knowledge. By objective knowledge, I mean knowledge of the world around us. This can be useful or dangerous, depending on how you use it. Comparing your neighbour's new car to your old one may lead to jealousy and covet. covetousness, or it might lead you to appreciate this is safer or causes less pollution. But what I call the creative brain calls into question both the outer and inner, leading us to subjective and spiritual knowledge. By subjective knowledge, I mean knowledge of oneself from the skin inward. To take the example of your neighbour's car, if you have understood the pollution is undesirable, you will not want to pollute the atmosphere, outer, or pollute yourself, inner. So a creative reaction might be to change your car. When awareness is linked to intelligence, we are able to see with absolute honesty. When brain and body move in harmony, there is integrity. Memory supports this process because when memory functions perfectly, it becomes one with intelligence. But memory is useful if it helps to prepare you for the future, and even necessary if you use it to develop. Memory is a continuous profit and loss account through which we can see whether we are receding or proceeding. By sorting out our wanted from unwanted memory, we allow new experiences to surface. The whole of the useful past is now at our present disposition. Memory ceases to function as a separate entity and merges with consciousness. Patanjali said that when memory is cleansed completely, the mind drops like the ripe fruit and consciousness shines in its purest form. By this I mean that when memory serves as a spur to perfect present action without taint, then it is acting in its intended form. A cleansed memory is one that does not contain undigested emotions from the unconscious, but that deals with feelings in the present as they arise. Well, that's really hard to do that in life. Imagination, too, can work either to our benefit or to our detriment. It is undoubtedly the greatest gift to human beings. But the Sanskrit word vikalpa also means fantasy or delusion. Without steady application, even the most inspiring flights of imagination must remain impotent, devoid of reality. If a scientist has an idea, he may have to labour for years experimenting, analysing, and checking in order to bring it to fruition, to make it concrete. A writer may dream of the plot for a new novel, but unless he applies himself to pen and paper, his ideas have no value. Tapas is the key here. The word implies intense, purifying heat, a fire that, like the alchemists, transforms base metal into gold. Imagination is the flickering flame, the coolest part of the fire. Dancing flames give light to reveal shape, which in yoga terminology is a subtle counterpart of fire. What is an idea, a concept, but the shape in the mind? The work before us is to blow on the fire with the bellows of tapas, so that it becomes intensely hot and transforms the shapes of mind into reality. Asana practice brings mind and body into harmony for this task. Your mind is always ahead of your body. The mind moves into the future, the body the past, but the self is in the present. The coordination between them that we learn in asana will enable us to turn the shape of our visions into the substance of our lives.
Would you like to continue or someone else?
Maybe someone else can have it. I'll just finish that bit and then maybe someone else can read the next bit.
Okay.
Sleep is sleep. I asked earlier, what can it teach us? After all, we never witness it. We are inert and unconscious and have no direct memory of it.
The goal of the student of yoga is to transform this into a positive state of mind while awake. The senses and the mind flows up like a bud, but a witness remains alert. This is a pure state in which the self is free from the accumulations of experience. When the mind is controlled and still, what remains in the soul? The absence of ego in the state of sleep is akin to samadhi, but it is dull and without awareness. Samadhi is the egolessness of sleep combined with the vibrancy of intelligence. When we are in deep sleep, we lose our ego, our I-ness. We forget who we are and return to the cosmic eternal mind. There is a brief moment on awakening before I consciousness returns, when we can just glimpse this tranquil, egoless state. It should be our guide. It is a natural window onto the meditative mind in which we realize that we are one and learn to accept. When the ego is quiescent, our sense of pride lessens. We are receptive and become more understanding. We are not offended by life's affronts. We become insulated from anxiety and anguish, both within and without. I think that's that for this part. Sorry, it was quite long because I really think these parts are brilliant and also quite interesting. So not only to understand how the mind works, but how we should use the tools that we have in our mind. Do you have any questions about what we read? Apart from what Karen said, that it's really hard to actually do it, not envy your neighbor and so on. Yeah, Elizabeth.
My question is just general, because you, in the book, this focus on memory and how significant it is, and I've just been trying to sort of grapple with it because how memory affects consciousness. Memories are in the past and they're imprinted, and yet they can come up. Something can spark them to come up. So I think I just have a general question about just this, about the impact of memory on consciousness, and I think that's it. I'm not sure.
I'll try to make it brief because this can be a whole lecture about memory in yoga consciousness, but let me use Prashant's words, Prashant Iyengar. You can memory can work on you, or you can work on your memory. So the bad part or the unwanted work of memory is when memory is what drives you, when you have to make a decision. If you base your decision solely on your memory and you're doing it unconsciously, that's an unwanted action. Anything unconsciously would be unwanted. But if you do something because in the last time you did it and you have a memory of the last time you did it, it was bad, and you are full of fear or disgust, or you have this aversion in you because of that memory of past experience, that would be wrong. So that's a moment to stop, look at it, and see, I'm now wiser. This is a safer situation. I'm not the same that I was before, to have the courage and do whatever. But memory can be used in a good way, like in his example, when you're practicing an asana and you can compare between the right side and the left side of the body, or you remember last time this was easy, now this is hard. Last time it was really hard and now it is easy. And in that way, memory gives you more knowledge to continue and explore yourself. And it helps you to bring your awareness to the present moment. So you're linking the past into the present moment to become wiser, and in order to cultivate this inner discriminating knowledge or wisdom he is talking about. So again, memory could be understood as a bad thing as long as it is this samskara or vasana, something that is inscripted in you, either from this life or previous life, so your childhood or more recent times, whatever you believe in. And if that is the thing that makes you choose something that would not be free will. And he discusses free will and intuition here and in the next chapter. So the idea would be to live out of freedom, to live out of consciousness, to have a free choice whenever you choose how to act in the world, and not to have this imprint on you coming from past experiences, from the memory, making you fearful or anxious or ego-driven, but to have something more open and still use your memory. You should not disregard it because it's really valuable, all the experience you gain throughout your life, but not you have to use memory. Memory should not use you. Am I clear enough, Elizabeth? Do you have any questions?
Could I just say, Aggie, and is there something in that as well about, we go on automatic pilot? A lot of, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of mindfulness to be present with every decision that you make, that it's not being we don't, when we're making decisions throughout our life, I'm not sure if in day-to-day life we think, oh, my memory is, something that's happened to me in the past is affecting my decision now. Like, that takes so much awareness to be able to go into that space, because a lot, we do live in automatic pilot in some instances. Do you think?
Well, I agree with this is how we are, but I also think that he is guiding us on a way not to be an automatic pilot. If we continue doing the same things that we are already doing, there is no space for change. There is no cultivation of inner wisdom. There is no improvement of our intuition. And then you cannot learn anything new. You cannot transform. So the idea is to be less on automatic pilot. Now you may say, okay, so this is really hard when I'm at the supermarket or when I'm driving or when I'm communicating with other people. So do this in your practice, in your asana pranayama practice. Now, if it's 90 minutes a week, that won't work. If it's 3 times 90 minutes a week, better. If it's every day, if it's 3 hours every day, there you have a window where you can look inside your mind. You can look at your imprints. Am I afraid to jump up to Pincha Mayurasana because yesterday I fell and my ribs still hurt? Is this the present? The body hurts, or is it the mind that is fearful? Can I recall a previous memory that will help me and do this perhaps in a safer manner? How can I use my memory and not be governed by it? And I agree that in everyday life, it won't be as useful. If I need to cross the road, I won't stop and say, well, I don't want to be governed by my memory. I don't want to be afraid of cars, but you have to have this logic, a healthy sense of logic of how to live. But we have this beautiful window of exploring our mind and body, this laboratory that we dedicate some time and effort to it every day. Yes, Esther.
I think the important part here, at least for me, was this connection between memory and the nervous system. So that like a trauma response. So that's the easiest way a Westerner would describe it, right? That you have a trauma. So you have something stored in your mind that immediately sets your nervous system into this fight, flight, freeze mode. And then you have all of these cascade of responses that are connected to it. And then how that you have the possibility to reprogram it and say, and at least pause, slow down, and then gear into the parasympathetic nervous system and even store a new truth into your mind and say, this was only in this particular instance. It's not the truth. It's not always like that. It's like I can really learn how to respond to something. So this, I think this, for me in this part, the really important part was this connection between what's in your mind and what does your body do and how do you connect it. So I don't know what that is.
Thank you for adding that, because in practice, in asana practice and in pranayama practice even more, that's where we meet this. That's where we feel the tension in our body, the shortness of breath, the agitation, the irritation. That's where we meet that nervous system manifestations. And that's
yeah, and
where
in the yoga pose also, right? Because like you said, you can be, oh, Pincha Mayurasana. Maybe you fell, or maybe you just think, oh, it looks so extreme, I won't be able to do it, or whatever it is. It's more, it gets you more out there, but then you are supposed to learn that, no, you can learn this. It's okay. So.
Yeah, so I really think back to Karen's question that it's in the yoga practice itself that we have a chance to explore the body and the mind and the nervous system, which of course links the two. And you are right, it's hard on everyday basis all the time. And we are privileged in that way, that we have this window to look into ourselves, and we have the tools to quieten the nervous system, and we have the time to take care of ourselves. So let's go into reading about prajna. So that's page 162. This is shorter than before. We won't have long segments as before. Okay, so I'll read, and whoever wants to join in, you can open your mic. There is a further stage, spiritual intelligence, which is true wisdom, dawns only when discrimination ends. Wisdom does not function in duality. It perceives only oneness. It does not discard the wrong. It sees and feels only the right. When we are buying a house, we need to use the logical, discriminating intelligence. A politician, however high his motives, must choose and decide in the relative and temporal world. Spiritual wisdom, on the other hand, does not decide. It knows. It is entirely present, and so it is free of time, as we shall see as we move inward closer to the soul. For the moment, we must be content to see the sky clearly and say that it is blue when the sun shines. Sorry, I always get tearful when I read this. Ultimately, science tells us the atmosphere is colorless like water. Sensory perception may be flawed, but at least clear, healthy senses will show us the wonderful variety of color in the sky or in the waters of rivers and lakes. This knowledge is not perfect, but it is valid. It provides a reasonable foundation. A good nervous system will make our action swift and sure. Healthy bodies give strength to act. Unclouded minds give stability and relief from emotional upheavals. The awakening of intelligence will help us to choose, decide, and initiate action. What we are witnessing is a coming together, an integration of the sheets of being that we are exploring, so that they can act in harmony and form a source that is moving ever closer to the core. What I'm describing here is a journey from a chattering brain to clean instinct, to react the clarity of intuition, to reach the clarity of intuition. When you start yoga, you probably are living in your mind and emotions, a never-ending internet chat room. With asana and pranayama practice, first we move outward from the mind and cleanse the body, senses, and organs. Instinct is revitalized. The newly awoken intelligence of the body moves in and tells you automatically what food is good for you, when and how much to eat, when and how to exercise, and when to rest or sleep. People forget that in our quest for the soul, we first reclaim the pristine joys of the animal kingdom, health and instinct, vibrant and alive. At the same time, we are transforming instinct into intuition. Okay, yeah, I'll continue. Sorry. Someone else for this bit, perhaps?
I don't mind.
Yes.
Which page is this? Sorry.
This is 163. I hope at this level of practice.
Okay, I'll try. At this level of practice, where total attention is almost within our grasp and total penetration is becoming a real possibility, there is something of a parting of the ways concerning what is called free will. Free will for most people implies being able, for good or ill, to do what we want and not to do what we don't. Our yoga practice up till now will have enhanced these potentials. Growing health, vigor, brightness, and self-control will have enabled us to look on more and different activities than before, change the quality of our relationships, and of course, put the ice cream back in the freezer. All this comes into most people's idea of self-realization, and it is a pleasant and essential aspect of living one's life. But now another side of free will is beginning to declare itself, and you might call that the will to be free. In spite of its attractive sound, it is, to the average person, a daunting prospect, implying as it does, penetration into the heart of the unknown, detachment, and the potential pain of ultimate self-knowledge. This requires real guts, and so we should take a moment to look at the source of our will. In 1944, I struggled terribly with my practice. It was dry, lifeless, and artificial. I was acting from the will of my head, my ego, and not from my heart, my intelligence. The simple fact is that the will of the ego is finite, and because our ego is finite, it is a personal attribute limited to us. It is just the sum of all our past experiences and acquisitions. Coming from the head, it will always feel forced. Coming from a finite origin, it will always eventually run out. This will that springs from the intelligence of the heart is, by contrast, linked to the infinite resource, cosmic intelligence, Mahat, and cosmic consciousness. It is a well that will never run dry. Yoga calls the will or incitement to action that derives from universal consciousness, prana.
Okay, we stop here. We will get back to this bit. I think I jumped between parts, but this is kind of an answer to Karen's question about the autopilot. He reassures us that if we continue our yoga practice and we continue observing what happens, what comes up, and then it's just about observing, really, and not just reacting and being on an autopilot, we will get a new autopilot. This is quite remarkable. And I think we already are experiencing this. Oh, I'm tired. Let me slow down. Oh, now I'm hungry. It means I didn't eat enough before or not enough nutritious food. Do I have to act on this hunger now or can I postpone it? But we start listening to our bodies, not only in our yoga practice, but outside of it. And then even during a conversation, if it's too heated, we can say to ourselves, I need to slow down now. I need to step back. Why am I overreacting right now? So this exploration that happens within our yoga practice can then be applied to our day-to-day life, to ourselves, to our emotional state, to our physical state, to our the mind, the body, and the I lost the word. So we can just apply it not only to the yoga practice but outside of it. So let's continue about what he says about his yoga practice. He's now, I think we are in between pages 166 and 171. He talks about yoga practice and sadhana, which is the path, a spiritual path to transformative knowledge. It's going beyond the mere physical practice. So if you can continue reading the intelligence, and we are going to skip quite a lot because this part is important, but we can't read all of it. It's on the same page.
I can read, but I only have your text because my book is in German.
Okay.
The intelligence we are now developing depends upon emotional and moral maturity, the ability to value truth and respect ethical conduct, the capacity to feel love in its more universal sense as compassion. Well, in Sanskrit, manava means man. By association with manas, it also means one who has a mind. And another meaning of mana is to live with honor and dignity. The implication is clear. We are human beings, gifted with intelligence that lends purpose and direction to our steps, striving to live ethically, that is, with honor and dignity. The question that hangs over mankind is, can we really achieve freedom? Conscience. Intelligence can be largely self-policing because it has the ability to initiate action and the ability to factor in consequences of these actions. A conscious effort to observe and identify these defects in ourselves rather than in others pays dividends. Such self-examination forms an integral part of the study and education of self, svadhyaya, which is the fourth segment of the ethical code of niyama. But still, we need both a yogic technique and an independent arbiter. I shall deal with the second first. The function of independent arbiter, I don't know the word, the witness of the witness, as it were, is fulfilled by conscience, antakarana. This is the face of the lens of consciousness that faces the soul. It is less likely to be tainted by contact with the world than the outward face of the lens, which is in contact through the senses with the world about us. When this facet of consciousness, which we call in English conscience, is flawless, reflecting only the light of the soul, it is known in Sanskrit as the organ of virtue, dharmendriya. Cosmic consciousness can be considered in a way to be the soul of nature, limitless as the universe, all-embracing. That part of cosmic consciousness that is in us is the individual conscience. It is in closest proximity to the soul, Purusha, and therefore has a very special relationship with soul. It is the nearest point of contact we experience between the natural world and the spiritual world. For that reason, you could say that conscience is the perception of consequences perceived from the deepest level, that of unity. This is where soul infuses matter, a bridge between soul and nature. That is why conscience will only ever tell you one thing, offer one course of action, because it comes out of oneness. Conscience is consciousness being able to tune in to the promptings of the individual soul, Atma.
Okay, we stop before we go into meditation. Michal, you had a question about this bit?
Yes, I did. Hi, everybody. Later on in the chapter, he talks about, what does he talk about? Cosmic consciousness in meditation. And I think I am beginning to understand, even though it's not in my world, I'm not religious in any way, so the concept of cosmic was not, who cares? I mean, what's cosmic? So But now that I'm reading and I'm in this mode, and because of this meeting, I'm beginning to understand that the concept at least. So basically, it's really the highest form of being and meditation and concentration. And I understand this is the way to samadhi, because it's not just me and my little discoveries, but it's also me in connection to the universe. Again, it's not in my life. I don't live it. No, but intellectually, I can understand it. What I'm saying is that I can only understand it intellectually.
Now, for now.
Now.
Which
But
is the
at least
beginning.
but at least I don't reject it, which is
Yeah.
usually I reject. So I'm a little bit open to this, which is nice. So thank you. It really is a fascinating chapter, and I was mesmerized. So it's not easy to understand everything. In fact, can I ask for a repeat of this group meeting? Let's just meet next week and start all over.
That's a great idea. But
It's
yes,
not
of
enough.
course, these concepts are difficult to understand, and the first step is to get to know them, then it's to understand them, and then it would be to experience them if we are lucky enough, if we are practicing enough. So just before we go into the next bit, you already mentioned about meditation, dhyana. I would like just to emphasize the connection between having a moral life, which he will discuss again in chapter 7, and intelligence and intuition. So going back into this alternative autopilot, or our innate wisdom that awakens, that's similar to what we feel as conscience when we have a situation in front of us. What is the right thing to do? We kind of feel it, right? When I was a very young girl, I asked my mom what's the right thing to do. And she said, you should always do the thing that when you wake up in the morning, you can look at yourself in the mirror and not regret what you did the day before. So something you can live with. And as we become more and more moral in our conduct and more attuned to what is happening in our body, in our nervous system, in our mind, we kind of resonate the outside and the inside, whatever happens. Am I clear, or am I going far beyond? Okay, so this idea of conscience, the idea of having a moral way of life, and then of being very much aware, all of this brings us to free will and living in a free way. So let's go to our last bit, which is meditation. Iyengar yoga is often accused by not practicing meditation in their classes, which is of course ridiculous. So let's just read this last bit of, yeah, some of you got my joke about meditation.
I did.
Someone?
I'd like to read.
Yes, please.
I have often said that yoga is meditation and meditation is yoga. Meditation is the stilling of the movement of consciousness. It is bringing the turbulent sea to a state of flat calm. This calm is not torpid or inert. It is deep tranquility, pregnant with all the potential of creation. Remember the biblical phrase from Genesis, and God's breath moved upon the waters. When you ruffle the waters, you create. You create everything in the manifest world, from nuclear war to Mozart symphonies. The yogi is journeying in the opposite direction, from the world of things and events, which are so joyous, painful, baffling, and unending, back to the point of stillness before the waves were ruffled. This is because he wants to answer the question, who am I? He hopes that if he can find that out, he will be able to answer the questions, what is my source of being? And is there a God I can know? Continue? Yeah. The culmination of this chapter is the experience of the existence and plenitude of the individual soul. But the practice of meditation extends into the next chapter, which concerns samadhi. total absorption and immersion in the ocean of being or universal divine. The frontiers we create to explain are artificial. Yoga is a ladder we descend, but whereas with a real ladder, when you are on the 7th dhyana rung, all your weight is on that rung. In yoga, your weight is still equally on the preceding rungs that have aided your ascent. Should any one of these crack, you fall. We shall see that especially in chapter 7 when we examine the ethical code, and that is both the foundation and in its realization, as you say in English, the proof of the pudding. I will continue. Where meditation is concerned, I am purist. I must be. I am yogi. That does not mean that there is anything wrong with attending meditation classes to relieve stress and achieve relaxation. It is simply that as a practicing yogi, I have to declare the truth. You cannot meditate from a starting point of stress or bodily infirmity. Meditation is Olympic final for yoga. You cannot turn up half fit. All the preceding sages of yoga have served to train you up to tip-top condition.
This is the end of it. What I suggest.
Where is it?
Just the end of the same page, 100.
What I suggest is concentration on the breath. Nothing penetrates deeper than breath, or in more pervasive, or what I suggest is concentration on the breath. Nothing penetrates deeper than breath or is more pervasive. Immediately you will object that the moving breath is like the waves of the sea, constant but moving, therefore not a thorough challenge for the dharana. You are right, but what of retention of the breath? Breathing stops. It is not the cessation of the movement of breath, but the life-giving force, the greatest point of stillness imaginable. Breath moves, retention does not. Shall I continue? I'm tired.
If you're tired. Yes, please, Elizabeth.
Yogic meditation is performed alone, not in groups. It is not a lonely activity, but aloneness, like the illuminating moon that can lead to the ultimate and transcendent aloneness. Do not confuse aloneness with loneliness. Loneliness is separation from the cosmos. Aloneness is to become the common denominator of the cosmic all. The arrested breath, perceived with the unwavering eye of dharana, bears consciousness to its core. It halts the movement of thought. As Patanjali wrote, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of consciousness. I said that dharana purifies intelligence. The still mind is by definition pure.
Thank you. We won't get to the end of it, at the end of the chapter, but it's interesting to continue reading. Of course, there's a twist to the plot then. If you read, you already know that it's not the end meditation, and therefore we don't end the book here, but we have 2 more chapters to go. So this is quite fascinating, as you said, that he discusses dharana and dhyana, the difference between concentration and meditation, and the importance of practicing both. And there I prepared 3 discussion questions, like I usually do. I'll read them out now, then we'll separate into groups for a brief discussion of 10 minutes, because we're already running late, and then we'll regroup and finish for today. So here are the 3 questions that I will also send you in the chat. So the first is, what is the difference between Vijnanamaya Kosha and Manomaya Kosha, and how are they activated during asana practice? How can proper use of memory help us become aware of samskaras and change our behavior? And 3, how does moral behavior help in developing Vijnanamaya kosha? So I'll see you in a few minutes in the
Oh, Augie, do you mind just to explain those koshas again quickly? I don't
The
remember.
koshas are the 5 sheaths.
Right, I remember, but
There is
which
the
one?
body, there is the breath, there is the mind, and now we were touching on the wisdom. So what's the difference between the mind and the wisdom? That's basically what we talked about today. But my question is not just about the difference between them, because we discussed, but how, what is the difference? How are they activated during asana practice? Yeah, that's your bit to add. Okay, so I'll see you soon. Okay, great discussion again. And I want to refer to something that one of you said in one of the breakout rooms, that it's one thing to read it and to kind of understand it passively when you read it, but then to talk about it, it's a different layer of understanding the concept. And that's what we're doing here. Some of you are teachers, and conveying the wisdom of light and life to your students is a very important part of what we're doing here. And yoga readers is not only for teachers, but those who are have to take an extra effort and speak about these terms, of course, in your own languages to your own students. But it's a different kind of understanding. Not only that we talk about these concepts, but we try to analyze them and we try to connect them to our everyday life. And I think that's where the magic happens, not just reading it and keeping these concepts in the book. Do you have anything else to add? I have an announcement, but maybe before that, questions?
I'd just like to say I get so much out of these meetings and the discussions, because yeah, it's awesome, Aggie, and I just want to thank you again for all your time and your effort, because without you we wouldn't have this, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I wanted to add as well that I'm grateful as well, and it's wonderful, and I'm so happy that you sent the reminder, because I looked up 12 o'clock GMT compared to Amsterdam, and it said 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 12 you said 1 hour we will start. So I thought I better roll up my yoga mat, get prepared, because it's already in half an hour. So
okay.
it was, it's strange, because Google gave me some misinformation, or I misinterpreted it. But it was.
So I had the same confusion, because I woke up, I'm in Central Time, and I woke up and I saw the message that it's about to start. But instead of logging in, I went to my Google and it said time difference is 5 hours. So I thought it would start like 20 minutes ago. So I was going to send something.
This Greenwich, what is it? Greenwich mean?
Yeah,
Meantime.
GMT and CST are 5 hour different. So today there's confusion, at least on my part too. And I was going to send a private message to Augie.
But the British time, and now they have summertime, so GMT is not BST. So, and I think, Augie, you mean BST. I think.
Sorry, this is the first time I'm doing these, international sessions. And if anyone has an idea how to have less confusion, once I was at a conference where they just sent out, this is London, this is Jerusalem, this is Berlin, and that was too much. Like in Tokyo and
Right.
Morocco, and that's too much. So we need to find maybe an app. I thought that Google Calendar would work best, because then everyone will add it to their calendar and get a notification in time, but maybe that's not working. So if you have any suggestions.
It was working for the last previous
Yeah.
whole reading. I think today
Yeah.
was a mistake.
Yeah.
We were supposed
I-
to
First
start
one
it
was
1
lame
hour
for me.
later. So
The
the
same thing
system is good. The execution
Yeah.
wasn't
So what,
And
perfect.
the last reminder,
what about Tel Aviv time or Jerusalem time?
I tried that the first time and people got confused. It was GMT +3 because that's my time.
Right.
People were confused with that. So I said I cannot be, Israel centered, and I have to go with GMT, which is international time in a way.
Yeah.
So if you have an idea
Hmm.
how to have less confusion, I would appreciate it. I thought the
that
Google
reminder,
Calendar.
the last reminder was really wonderful. That did the trick.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Actually-
let's give it another try then.
Okay.
Aggie, I just want to say that as well. I had the same experience as the other lady, that up until now, GMT, I've always added 1 hour, and that's worked for me. And I Googled today just to check. And when I saw your text, I thought, oh, I thought I had another hour. I should have just come online then when I got the reminder, but I relied on Google that said that Dublin was an hour ahead. So of GMT. So I don't know. I'm sorry I missed all the meeting mostly, but
Right,
I'll
right.
catch up on the recording.
Probably
I think-
due to
I
the
think,
Olympics.
Right.
What?
I think, Agi, today your start time was not according to GMT, is what
No.
I think. Yeah.
No.
It was according to my Google Calendar.
Yeah.
In which I
Sure.
trust.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
I'm sorry for any
No problem. No,
confusion.
no. We appreciate it.
What I
Yeah,
usually
okay.
did is I would send out, we will meet in 4 hours, we will meet in 1
yeah.
hour, and then now we are meeting. But what I
Okay.
wanted to announce is that for me, July and August is quite chaotic. And I will take a short leave. So our next meeting would be at the end of August. And what I thought is every time we do a poll, there is the first, the most people ask for 12 noon GMT, but then the second option is never chosen again and again and again. So I want to just choose for now the second option, which was, I'll just send it to you. I don't want to mix it up. In my times, it's a Saturday, 6 p.m., but I'll send you I hope the correct time for that. So other people have a chance to join us from different regions in the world. And yeah, we can have more time to reread chapter 5, and then chapter 6 is amazing. I mean, it's the last chief. And it's one chapter before the last chapter, which stands by itself. Chapter 7 stands by itself. So chapter 6 is the peak of our reading, and it really deserves more time than just 2 or 3 weeks. So I think it goes. There is an alignment between me taking time off and you are receiving more time to read.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thank you.
I have more
Thank you.
ideas that I think I will save for the next book, with having a newsletter, and in a newsletter having more than just quotes, but also my or your thoughts about the quotes. We could have like terminology dictionary that every chapter we can choose 1 or 2 concepts and kind of mark them and explain how Guruji explains these terms. We could have links to outside source materials if it's an interview with Guruji, or if it's just a YouTube that explains something that is related to our chapter. So I have many ideas about how we can move forward and even have more material before each session. But I don't think I can do it alone. So I will appreciate your thoughts on the matter. And then if somebody wants to help in the future with any of these ideas, that would be great. Maybe we could just assign each person with a chapter or 2, and then each person can choose 1 or 2 concepts and so on. So it will be like small things and not taking the whole book. That's my part. And the last thing I wanted to mention, so these are the thoughts for the future. A newsletter. Yeah, I forgot, but that's that for today.
What's the next book? What's the
Oh.
next book?
I'm keeping that for myself.
It's a secret.
I remember the third thing. Your help with reaching out to Iyengar Yoga associations. What I did in Israel, because we didn't have enough Iyengar Yoga practitioners, that we opened it up, and we will in the future read non-Iyengar books. But what I hope to achieve in the international group is to read the books of the Iyengars, and we can stick to B.K.S for a while and then evolve into other books. But for that, we need more presence of Iyengar Yoga practitioners. And it's one thing if I will approach the Swedish or the German Iyengar Yoga Association, and it's totally different if you approach your own association and you tell about your own experience, and then you suggest them to send it out in the newsletter for the other practitioners. I think we are missing out on many, many people who could benefit from this community. So if you are willing to write to your association, that would be great. And that's that for today. Thank you very
Enjoy your
much.
holiday.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye.